Recently, the EU voted on Amendment 171, which aimed to prohibit imitation or evocation of dairy products. This means that if a product reminds you of a dairy product, it could be forced to change. So this means no yogurt style, cheese alternative, or even something like not milk. Additionally, anything sold in a yogurt pot or a milk carton could also be forced to change under these purposefully broad terms. You see, dairy industries are scared. People don't want to drink a cow's breast milk anymore. For example, in the UK, 1 in 3 people have already made the switch. But still, the industry continues to lobby governments. In fact, changes have already been happening right under our noses. This is a vegan cheese, but they're not allowed to say the word cheese, so they've just got the word block here. Same here, we got slices. You can see on the yogurts here, we've got Alpro Vanilla 1. This is unsweetened almond drink. We're not allowed to say the word milk. Next to it there, we've got almond drink, sweetened soya drink, and then Oatly, I think the nation's favourite probably by now. Oatly oat drink whole, no milk. So they are allowed to say no milk at the moment, but that's going to change soon. So here are the vegan butters. You can see here, this is called Pure. This is dairy free. So at the moment this is okay. They won't be allowed to say this for much longer if they keep the amendment in place. Dairy free, Vitalite dairy free. We see most of this. It's just another example here, Dream Rice. And they're not going to say milk on there. It's just Dream Rice, organic plant-based. Even Morrison's themselves, UHT sweetened soya. No mention of the word milk, but it's got a handy little vegan sign. This one's marketed to children, but actually this is good for children. So on the soy milks, they can say something the cow milk can't say, and that is good for you. But maybe I'm biased. Maybe the public really are confused. I spoke to average consumers from around the UK, none of which have invested vegan interests. I'm going to show you something. Tell me what you think it is as soon as you can.
Almond milk.
Hazelnut milk.
Soy milk.
It's the Alpro milk, hazelnut milk.
Well, that's a rice milk.
Do you think there's cow's milk in this?
I wouldn't hope not. Wouldn't think so.
No, there shouldn't be.
I would assume not.
No.
No, I don't believe so.
I would say no.
I guess one subconscious sort of thing is it's in the carton is in the shape of a milk, the kind of carton that cow milk comes in.
That's really interesting you say that. Is this product misleading?
No. Soy milk, right?
For me personally, no.
It makes sense to have it in a similar carton because it's got a similar, consistency and it's a liquid. So, Tetra Pak cartons are designed with, liquids in mind. So if that was their logic, then you would ban Tropicana juices from being in a similar kind of cartons. So I think it sounds like a political decision to kind of protect, an admittedly, what's the word, beleaguered, dairy market. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a bit, it's a bit cheeky.
I don't think when you look at them, I think it's clear enough that it's like, they'll usually have like some imagery of like a jug pouring it with almonds or rice or something coming out of it. And they're clear enough in their imagery of it being like saying what's here is, it's not like they've got a cow shooting out almonds from its udders or something.
Yeah.
They've very clearly not tried to mislead you into thinking it's milk.
Because they're trying to sell this to people who don't want cow's milk, right?
Yeah, like they're not, their business model isn't on how tricked you. It's on here's an alternative.
Well, to be honest, it is milk.
Yeah.
It is like, it's a plant-based milk, but what's the difference between, it's not like it's got a cow on there, is it?
No. Do you feel misled if you bought this and it's not cow's milk? Have you been misled?
Not at all. You can see there are hazelnuts there. So what are the chances of having hazelnut in the cow's milk?
Scale of 1 to 10, how misleading is this?
No. 0.
Consumers are not confused. They are not misled by oat milk or cheese alternatives. Banning these terms does not fit the thinking of modern times. Vegan alternatives are under attack from a newly intimidated meat and dairy industry. They accuse dairy alternatives of being misleading, which is ironically a tactic that the meat and dairy industry like to use itself. Free-range eggs, free-range eggs, free-range eggs, free-range eggs, free-range eggs. Morrison's only does free-range eggs now, which might feel better for the consumer, but really what do we think free-range means? Doesn't this give you some ideas of free-range? But really what you're looking at is a misrepresentation. Most free-range chickens are not going to live like that, especially egg-laying chickens. And there's not nearly enough poo on here. Because, you think I'm joking, but the chickens have a cloaca, right? That's everything in one. That's an anus, and so they poo and they pee and they lay eggs all from the same place. So there should be a lot of poo on those eggs. Poo-free. Is that misleading? A laughing cow? I don't think any of these cows are going to be laughing. Things like this that are marketed to children, we can see it says source of calcium and vitamin D, and that's because they can't actually say it's healthy, but they can say that a couple of the nutrients inside are healthy. So I would call this a misleading product. Gentle goat's milk? There's nothing gentle about this, and I can guarantee you that this goat is not smiling. Let's take a look at this. Our farmer's milk comes from cows who graze for a minimum of 120 days a year, which is only a third of the year. So there's no legal requirement there for them to go out for longer than that. So maybe a lot of them are just out there for 120 days. This is big milk. And there you go, this is good. On the side here contains iron, vitamin D, calcium, blah, blah, blah. But nowhere on here is it going to say that the milk is healthy for you, because that would be a lie. If you still don't know why milk is bad for the cows, go and watch Dairy is Scary, and you can find a link in the description. When you think of free-range chickens, what do you see?
Well, what I don't see is cages and buildings.
Walking around space, a good diet, not forced to lay eggs,
Yeah.
not on any weird hormonal treatments, which mess them up, make them grow abnormally large. Or
Like chickens running around on a field happily.
Chickens running around freely and like being given the food that they need, but being able to not being packaged very closely together.
I don't see chickens packed densely, tightly packed in any sort of enclosure whatsoever.
Free range, well, that's a real difficult one, because I've seen some things that it's like it's the difference between what free range should look like and what free range often does.
So you already know about... Okay.
Yeah, I know that. I know that the technical definition of what constitutes free range is far below the standard of what it is.
To be granted free-range status in the UK, there can be no more than 13 birds per square metre. Additionally, a chicken must be at least 56 days old before it's slaughtered. So to put this into perspective, a chicken can live for 5 to 10 years, which means that it can be killed at 1.5% of its lifespan, which would be like killing a human baby at 15 months. Lastly, the birds must have continuous daytime access to open-air runs for at least half of its lifetime. But notice this word, access. Technically, a small door at the end of a long shed with thousands of chickens in the way is access. You might also see free-range milk and dairy on the shelves, but there is actually no regulation in place securing that term in this industry. In other words, milk can be labelled as free-range no matter what the welfare is of these animals. Would you mind watching a quick video? I think it's only about 3 or 4 minutes.
Of course.
Okay, so this is what free range looks like. This is footage of like a typical farm.
Well, yeah, it's definitely different than what I said.
Chick looks pretty distressed. Judging by the noise in the background, it's pretty high density as well.
oh Christ, man!
You can see she's lost a lot of feathers,
Okay.
and it looks like she may have been cannibalized by the other hens.
That's horrible.
Yeah, this is what I thought battery farms were basically. Well, obviously they are, but I like to think that free range was different. Christ.
You can actually see its organs. Like, oh my gosh, it's disgusting.
Yeah, they often
You
have
see it as
open
raw.
wounds. Yeah.
Mm.
Pretty distressing, actually. That's a lot denser than I expected.
Yeah.
It's pretty outrageous that they can. Well, the way free range is marketed, obviously, isn't it? It is this happy place where chickens can live naturally and aren't all cooped up, but clearly that's not the case.
It makes me feel really horrible now.
Like, you know, when I said like you almost expect them to be roaming like the farms and the fields, like what I'm watching now is like they're just so closely packed together, and it's not what you expect. It's almost like you're paying for something that does not even happening.
I think, yeah, just to reiterate this woman who's speaking out, her argument is that, people do pay more, and you're paying for that, what I guess is a lie almost. I don't think a lot of people would or would either not pay more or just wouldn't pay at all. They'd find a substitute if they realised this.
God, it's almost you know, if you hadn't told me that was free range, I would have thought this was a video about battery hens or somewhere in between free range and battery, so but still high density.
So tell me about it. Were you surprised?
I was actually, because like when you it's almost like when you learn about free range and what people say about free range, it's not what I just saw wasn't free range. It's almost like it was more like it was almost like they were caged, but the cage wasn't there because they were so closely packed together.
Yeah.
It's not really. It's because the thing is, if you're supposed to be paying more for free range, and like it seemed like what you're paying for, you're not getting that. You're getting something which is a lot worse quality.
In a perfect world, what it would mean is each animal getting as much space as it would naturally be able to get in the wild and as much as it would need, while also these animals having a certain level of protection from obviously natural predators such as foxes for chickens.
When you imagine free range chickens, you imagine them like, you know, happily gallivanting around on a field. It's not like that. That's why I imagine a battery hen would be like, not a free range hen.
I've been living a lie. Like I thought,
I'm not
the way I can justify vegetarianism over veganism is, I'm not contributing to that side of things.
Yeah.
Some things I'm not surprised to hear about, but it's not what I expected from a video on free range.
I mean, I'm not surprised because I do have, or I used to have those pictures in my mind, but I didn't know those were like free range. You know, I think most people have already seen these kinds of videos, not only for chickens, but also for, cows, pork, all kinds of animals. But still, it's quite shocking that those are actually free range.
You say free range, there's connotations of good farming practices, low density, and the chickens look like they've been sort of under, severe high density conditions.
Do you think the phrase free range is misleading?
Yeah, certainly I do now.
Yeah, very misleading.
I would say with the current definition of it, yes.
It's definitely misleading.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how misleading is the term free range?
If that is typical of what free range actually is, then I'd say an 8 or 9.5.
Probably 10.
10.
That is a deliberate attempt to label something as ethical, where it essentially isn't a much higher ethical standard than the battery farms a lot of the time.
Amendment 171 seeks to prohibit imitation or evocation of dairy products. Their argument is that this combats misleading products. It's only fair that they are made to hold themselves to the same requirement. Humane, cruelty-free, and even pictures of open fields or happy animals are misleading. Even the names of brands themselves can be misleading, such as Laughing Cow or Happy Eggs. Maybe these terms do meet the legal requirement, but they do not fit public definition. Many companies, including IKEA, Beyond Meat, Unilever, WWF, Greenpeace, Humane Society, SAFE, and the Vegan Society, among many more, had already spoken out against this amendment, but they were unable to influence the decision. We need to show that the people are against these changes. For the animals, for the environment, and for our health. In the description, you will find a letter to be sent to every member of European Parliament. Download it, adapt it if you wish, and send one yourself. Additionally, please do sign the petition that is also in the description. We can combat the meat and dairy industry in 2 ways. We can push for systematic change through petitions, protests, and appeals. And we can decrease supply and demand with our own individual choices. So if you're not doing so already, I implore you to choose vegan alternatives over meat and dairy. Thanks for listening.
I know that the dairy industry suffers to begin with. I know that dairy farmers already get a very poor price overall on their crops, and that the influx of these alternatives must represent another challenge toward their livelihoods. But at the same time, there are probably people who are producing these milk alternatives, I will continue to use the term, who are also have a livelihood to protect.